Previously on the Skip and Josh Sports Show.
You know Bettman gets booed all the time.
Gary Bettman, I have to stop you for a minute. Sit back and relax. Gary Bettman gets booed more than any other commissioner. People hate Roger Goodell, but Gary Bettman gets booed 1,000 times more than Roger Goodell.
But I appreciate how he kind of owns it now, right? He knows he's going to get booed, and he just kind of rolls with it, right?
What I don't get is, he should get booed in Canada. There's no question, because he.
This is what I wanted to say.
Whatever he says, he does not care about Canada. I don't care what he says.
But
publicly,
they should not boo him in Nashville.
But in Nashville and in pretty much any American city, he shouldn't get booed. Like, he's done nothing wrong to Nashville. I mean, I would boo him. I would boo him at the top of my lungs if I had the chance.
Yeah.
But I don't know what he did to the people in Nashville.
The Skip and Josh Sports Show is on now.
Skippy.
Hey, Cub. How you doing?
I'm doing great. We have to tell the listeners normally that you're in Montreal and I'm in Toronto. But today we're both in Montreal, actually. We decided to have a company-wide meeting where all the employees of the company came to Montreal for a meeting to talk about the rebrand of our show.
Right. And we're meeting right now in my basement.
Yeah.
And the total amount of people here is 2.
Yes, that's
right.
The entire members of our organization. So just to get some housekeeping out of the way, so there's going to be some minor tweaks to the show now. We're going to do shorter episodes. We're going to stick to one topic, and we may release multiple episodes per week.
Right. So based on the extensive listener feedback,
yes,
and our own feelings, we thought it would be better to kind of we have a tendency to go off on like 6 billion tangents every single episode. And we could talk about like a million things, whatever pops into my brain. I think it's mostly me that does that because my brain is like so weird. I always just go off on different topics. So we're going to try to stick to one topic on each episode and maybe speak a little bit more in depth about that topic than we might normally would. And the episodes may end up being a little bit shorter, but hopefully we'll post more episodes.
Right. And they need to be shorter because our listeners don't have that kind of attention span.
Well, it's funny because like we talked about this the last couple of days, and I always say I like long podcasts. Like being a podcast consumer, you know, like I listen to a lot of podcasts similar to our show, and I like them when they're long because mostly it's like I'm listening to them at bedtime. I like it like I want something that's more than 10 minutes. I want something that's more than half an hour even. But, you know, other people that we talk to, even today, like my wife and friends of ours that we met today were like, oh, well, I would like it to be shorter, you know? So I guess there's no, you know, precise recipe for it.
Right. And one of our listeners told us today that our podcast puts his daughter to sleep every night. So if you're having trouble putting your kids to bed, the remedy is just play our show and you're golden.
Right. So today's episode is going to focus, I guess, on everything that's been going on in the NHL this week. It's been we've had almost a week since we've posted an episode, and it's a weird time because usually it's quiet in the NHL up till July 1st, right? There's nothing going on, free agent frenzy, and then the draft. Like up until the draft and the free agent day, there's nothing happening. But because of this crazy expansion draft going on, there's a lot of goings on, right? The Golden Knights drafted their team. There's a whole bunch of trades, especially on the teams like Montreal that we follow closely. And then the NHL awards were at the same time. So we're going to kind of delve into all that's happening, all that stuff that's happened in the last, 5 or 6 days.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly as you said. Usually everything happens on draft day, but
right.
Because there was the expansion draft this year that happened actually yesterday, so some teams were doing some preventative maintenance, if you will, so as not to lose certain players from their roster. And really the first trade of significance was when the Montreal Canadiens acquired Jonathan Drouin from the Tampa Bay Lightning, which, if I recall, was a rumor that has been going on for over a year now.
That's right. I mean, there's been a million rumors about Drouin coming to the Canadiens since last year, since Drouin kind of had his little mini holdout.
Mm-hmm.
And, finally they got their man. They still don't have any centers, but they got Drouin.
Right. So I have to say, first of all, my thoughts on the trade. I like the trade in a bubble. It's a good trade. I mean, yes, they traded their top prospect, Sergachev, whose name I couldn't pronounce a year ago, if you recall.
All right.
But now I can. So yes, they did give him away, but you have to get something. You have to give something good to get something good.
Right.
And the Canadians needed offense. That was their biggest weakness. It's been their biggest weakness for years. So they did solve they did plug a hole. However, if they turn around and now trade Galchenyuk, or if they can't re-sign Radulov, then they're no further ahead than they were a year ago today.
I agree completely. They have no offense. So yeah, great to get Drouin. And, I don't mind trading like a 19-year-old prospect to get him, because Drouin's only 22, right? So you're actually trading for a guy that how good he is. Like, how good he is, and I think he could get even better, for a prospect who, he's widely considered to be, a can't miss, but you never know, right? You don't know. So at very least, they filled the need, Habs filled the need, and everybody should be happy. But like you said, if they don't re-sign Radulov, well, then they still don't have enough scoring. And trading Galchenyuk is a different story, because presumably they'd get something back for him.
Right, but I would assume they'd get a defenseman back if they traded Galchenyuk, which
I guess we'll see.
I mean, yes, they lost a few defensemen in the last week or so. I mean, the next trade the Canadians made was they traded Nathan Beaulieu because they figured they were going to lose him in the expansion draft.
Yeah.
They might as well get something for him, and they got a third round pick.
I didn't like that trade at all. I mean, when you listen to fan reaction and local radio, people don't know what to say about the trade, but like, the Habs just have a knack of giving up on their guys. Tenorti was a first round pick. He didn't pan out. They just gave him away for nothing. Beaulieu was a first round pick. Like, honestly, I'd rather have Nathan Beaulieu on the team than having a third round pick.
Right, but I don't know if he'd be on the team today. If they didn't trade him and they didn't protect him, which they weren't going to,
right.
He might not be on the team.
Well, but then they would have Emelin.
They'd have Emelin, yes. And who would you rather have? I think I'd rather have Beaulieu, to be honest, because Emelin is starting to get injury prone.
They wanted to get rid of Emelin's contract.
He's not exactly getting any younger, obviously.
Yeah.
But then you would have had to make a deal with Vegas in advance to ensure that they took the player that you wanted them to take.
I just don't like how a guy who they've invested a few years in, a first round pick, just ends up being, who's still young, ends up being flipped for a third round pick. And I guess that's his value, because I'm sure Bergevin's not out there making bad deals on purpose, right?
Right, but then you have to think. I mean, you were saying they did the same thing with Tenorti, and there's been other picks. So maybe the Canadians, and not maybe, actually the Canadians just don't pick well.
I don't know if it's a combination of maybe they don't pick well, which we don't know, or they have no idea how to develop their players.
Okay.
Right? There's a combination there.
Right.
It's like it goes hand in hand, right? Because this is one of the local guys posted a list, and I could try to find it. It's on Twitter, of all the Habs first round draft picks since like 20 years, 20 first round picks for 18
time.
years. And out of those 20, there's only like 5 that have panned out.
Well, Carey Price,
yeah, I mean,
Max Pacioretty,
you can go over the list, but it's a pathetic list.
PK Subban,
and how many and there's so many guys that didn't pan out; they were busts. But there's also guys that they gave away for nothing, which is even worse, right? So just segueing into Radulov, you're saying if they don't re-sign Radulov, the rumor came out today that he's asking 6 years, $7 million, or 7 years, $6 million. And Bergeron had a press conference today. They asked him about this. And it was very interesting, the press conference today, because it was
Trevor Timmins, the director of scouting.
Besides that, but the Canadians are always so secretive, right? It's like Fort Knox. It's like as if their trade talk is like CIA intel. But today he was like a wide open book, Bergevin. He laid it all out there. He gave information, which we don't usually have.
Okay, I have to go back and listen to that press conference.
So, I mean, the rumor is that Radulov's asking a lot. I mean, Bergevin didn't go into detail, but I mean, it's out there. And he said if they can't come to an agreement, they're ready to walk away, and he will trade Radulov's rights to get something.
Well, if he's going to do that,
July 1st.
If he's going to do that, it has to be before July 1st, because after that,
I think they're getting close.
But who's going to want to do that? Who's going to want to take his rights? Because then you have to be assured that you're going to sign him. Otherwise, you're giving up something for nothing.
Yeah, Radulov's agent is, I don't know if it's the player or the agent that's asking these big demands, but he gets to July 1st. The Canadians walk away, let's say.
Yeah.
And he gets to July 1st and he comes out with this number.
Mm-hmm.
No one's signing him.
Well, I know there's going to be a team that's going to sign him.
I don't think for that much.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Okay, then
it's too much.
All right. Well, if you don't think so, then first of all, if I'm the player or the agent, I'm going to ask for the sun, the moon, and the stars.
Of course.
100%.
Yeah.
First of all, he's coming off a good season. Not a great season, a good season.
Yeah.
And this is basically his last chance to cash in, right? Because he's not getting any younger.
But sometimes the players need to, if he wants to stay here, he needs to tell his agent, make a deal with Montreal.
Right.
What's fair. If he wants to hold them hostage, they made it clear today they're not going to sign him. The example I was looking for was a few years ago when Alex Kovalev was a free agent.
Yeah.
And the Canadians offered him a contract. I forget what the number was. And he said no. He took more money to go to Ottawa. And basically his career was over after that.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and he was miserable. And he made certain statements in the press like how he regretted not staying with the Canadians.
Of course. Look, I mean, you can cite a million examples in other sports.
Oh, of course.
Like Albert Pujols, when he was a free agent, he was great on St. Louis.
Yeah.
He got all this money in Anaheim, and he hasn't been the same player since.
No.
Now, maybe that would have happened if he stayed in St. Louis also, because he's getting older. You never know. But the change of scenery sometimes is a bad thing.
It's often is a bad thing.
Radulov has no ties to this city. He's been here for a year. It's not like he's been here his entire career.
He can do what he wants, but I think if they think he's going to get that much money by hitting free agency on July 1st, I think he's going to be surprised at what offers he gets.
You see, and I disagree with you because I think there's at least one stupid team out there, at least one, because there's always a bunch.
There's always one
that are going to say, here's a blank check, just write your amount and come play for us.
But 6 or 7 years is the thing that's going to scare teams away.
But every year you see players that are signed for contracts that are too long and amounts that are too much, and then when it gets to like the 3rd or 4th or 5th year of the deal, you're thinking, why did we sign this guy for so long?
I guess only time will tell.
Well, I mean, why? I don't understand. Like, can't any general manager look down the road and say, oh, you know what?
This is a bad deal.
I'm not going to want this guy in 4 years or 5 years
or in
6
3
years.
years. These guys going to suck, and we're still going to be. I know they don't think of that.
They don't think of that. But as a fan, I don't know why it took me so long to realize this. I don't care if the Canadians break the bank and give him exactly what he wants, because the money's not coming out of my pockets.
But the thing is, as a fan, you do have to look. If you're an educated fan, you have to look at the salary cap.
Right.
And say if they give him this much money, then they can't assign someone else.
That's
right.
True. That's true.
So there's got to be some give and take, right? So and now they've also got to sign Carey Price. And,
right.
So we'll see what happens. I mean, the other big trade happened today in the NHL. The biggest trade, non-Canadians related, which was Jordan Eberle for Ryan Strome. It was like a player-for-player deal. And it's kind of like what they call like a challenge trade, right? 2 young players, both pretty good prospects. Eberle's had a better career so far. But I think for the Islanders, I think it was all about trying to keep Tavares by bringing in Eberle, who's supposedly, his friend and former teammate and line mate, in Team Canada. So
anytime I hear Jordan Eberle's name, all I think about is when he was on the World Juniors, and he was great.
Yeah.
And so if he can be anything close to the player he was in juniors, or at least in the World Junior Championships that year, I think he could be an excellent player.
Well, everyone talks about how he had a down year. He still had 20 goals last year.
I'll take a guy with 20 goals.
It's just that in the playoffs, when the Oilers made the playoffs for the first time in like 10 or 11 years, he had a terrible playoff. But that's a short sample size, Barry Bonds also sucked in the playoffs for so many years, and then they got to the World Series and they're like, oh, Bonds is great again, like.
The thing is, he may have had a bad playoffs, but the Oilers actually had a good playoff run.
They did.
I mean, compared to their last decade or more.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's because teams were keying on him, and so it enabled other players to score. Who knows?
Right.
I actually like that trade for the Islanders, and I'm also a big John Tavares fan, actually.
Oh,
and when there were rumors that the Islanders were going to trade him,
it's ridiculous.
I said, okay, well, pick up the phone and call.
If John Tavares is on a different team, his status in the NHL is way higher than it is. The fact that he's on the Islanders, it's like no one pays attention to him, but he's probably one of the top 5 players in the league.
I think Islanders general manager Garth Snow might be dumb enough to actually trade Tavares.
He is dumb. That is true. Yeah, I mean, he might be dumb enough.
He might be. And so,
but what if they get to a situation where they basically tell them we're not signing here, like they know they can't sign him, then they have to trade him.
Right, they have to. They have to.
Yeah.
So, so we're not going to. I mean, the expansion draft happened yesterday, and so Las Vegas got 30 players on their team, and we're not going to go through every single player they selected, but they did get some decent players.
Yeah, on paper they look like they have like a decent team, right?
Yeah, like
James Neal,
Marc-Andre Fleury, James
Cody
Neal.
Eakin. Yeah, I know.
Alexei Emelin's not bad.
Yeah.
So they got some decent players.
Mark Mathot.
Mark
That guy's like a number 2D on any
minus
team in
his
the league.
pinky finger.
Minus his pinky finger.
Right.
Yeah.
But then the Golden Knights turned around and made some trades.
They tried
like today.
Yeah.
So today the Canadians have been the busiest team this offseason, which is a rare thing actually.
Yeah.
Canadians went and got David Schlemko from Vegas because
I think that's like a depth move.
Well,
right?
they needed a defenseman, right?
Yeah.
Because who was going to be their fifth and sixth defenseman?
Well, it was interesting because like Pierre Maguire today on the radio was like raving about David Schlemko, saying
I heard that actually,
saying that he's a good acquisition, and he's an NHL defenseman, right? He was like a number 4, 5, 6 on San Jose, which was a very strong team last year.
Mm-hmm.
He played all the games, So I think he'll have his spot. Like, you need depth on defense. The Canadians don't have any.
Of course, yeah.
Right?
I mean, you need like 8 defensemen, and you need like 15 forwards because there's going to be injuries, and you're going to have healthy scratches, obviously.
Yeah.
So David Schlemko is not the youngest guy on the planet.
No,
I think he's 30
fine.
something.
Yeah.
But they needed a defenseman. They gave up a 5th round pick.
So I guess he's replacing Beaulieu, but he's just
exactly.
he's 32 instead of 25.
They got a 3rd round pick for Beaulieu.
Yeah.
And gave a 5th
round pick.
So overall, they come out sort of winners in that, I think.
Hi there, Skip and Josh will be right back. To get in touch with them, you can send them an email to skipandjoshshow@gmail.com. You can follow them on Twitter @skipandjosh, and you can visit their website at www.skipandjosh.com. And now, back to the show.
How did you like the whole expansion draft telecast combined with the awards? We watched it together. It was funny because we were watching the show together, and I wanted to say a lot of things, but I didn't say a lot of things because I wanted to like save it because I knew we were going to record the next day today. So, like, what did you think about the telecast?
Well, I mean, I've watched the NHL awards show, I think, every year that it's been on.
Yeah.
I even went to it once, actually.
When was that?
2002,
Where?
maybe. It was in Toronto.
Oh, okay.
I was volunteering at the event, so
yeah.
I wasn't, in the stands watching. I just happened to be there. So it was weird to see. I mean, you have all this like hoopla around the nominees and then the eventual winner of each award, and then they sort of throw to a desk where the owner and the general manager are sitting there. It was a little strange. The expansion draft, forget about the broadcast. I mean, you can give your comments in a sec of the broadcast, but the expansion draft, normally when an expansion team comes into the league, there's 2 expansion teams that come into the league.
Yeah.
So the teams have to alternate between picks. So you can't just get whoever you want because the guy you want might have just been picked by the other team.
And I was trying to think about, like, how come the Golden Knights are in such a great position here where they're wheeling and dealing and they're holding teams hostage, like, you give us a pick and then we won't take your guy, which was, they made a whole bunch of trades like that yesterday.
Yeah, they did.
I was like, why is this? How come this didn't happen when Atlanta and Tampa came in the league? This didn't happen before. And then I was thinking about it. I'm like, it has to be the salary cap, right?
Well, that, and also because Vegas is the only team that's picking.
Yeah.
So teams know that if they make a deal with Vegas,
then they're safe. Instead of making 2 deals. But I think because of the salary cap, certain guys were exposed, like James Neal, Emelin, right?
Right. Well, I mean,
that normally wouldn't be exposed.
It seems to me that Nashville didn't make a side deal with Vegas because Nashville lost a player they actually wanted to keep, I think.
Yeah.
You can sort of tell.
Well, Minnesota definitely made a side deal. Like, Matt Dumba was the best player available in this draft when you consider like age, the whole package, right? And they didn't pick him, which is nonsense because they could build their team around him. But obviously, they made a deal with Minnesota.
Well, I think didn't they get like 2 players and a pick?
They got a bunch of stuff
from Minnesota.
Yeah. So look, Las Vegas is trying to build their team. I'm still not convinced that it's going to be a successful hockey market. If you ask me, I don't know what the team's doing in Las Vegas.
A lot of tourists are going to go to games.
Well, okay,
because there's tons of tourists.
You can't build your team among tourists. It has to be season tickets.
That's true.
Right?
That's true. Absolutely.
And their logo is absolutely ridiculous.
I'm not a huge fan of the logo or the jersey.
I didn't like the logo when it came out, and then the jersey came out this week, and I was like, what is this? That is the worst jersey in the NHL.
It's not the worst, but it's not the greatest either.
When the Golden Knights play Nashville, it's going to be disgusting.
I actually like Nashville's uniform.
The yellow one?
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
It's going to be like someone threw up on the ice when those teams play.
It might be. It might look like that. Yes. And actually, speaking of jerseys, all 31 teams unveiled their new jerseys.
Adidas is cashing in on this.
But I mean, of the 30 new jerseys,
they're all the same.
I think there's 4 that are actually different than what they used to be.
There's probably little tweaks, but you know, in the end, it's basically the same thing, right?
Basically,
they're gonna sell more jerseys now because they have the Adidas, so everyone's gotta go out and buy an Adidas jersey.
Everyone's gonna do that.
I don't know everyone, but hardcore fans will, I guess.
So I want to just recap the actual awards that were distributed.
So just to tell you that I asked you how you thought of the telecast.
Yeah. So what did you think of the broadcast?
I mean, it's a typical kind of Canadian production in that it's.
I don't think it was.
No,
I think it was an American production.
It really lacked focus. It was the weirdest hodgepodge thing.
Yeah, they tried to combine 2 things into one
that
show.
Shouldn't have been, right? You know, they have the comedian, all the jokes, hardly anything was funny they tried to do.
The jokes are never funny.
Yeah, the beginning was good when he asked Bettman to switch seats with Crosby. I thought that was okay.
Yeah.
But most of the comedy stuff was completely bad.
Yeah.
And then they throw it to the desk. The highlight of the night is when the owner of the Vegas Knights actually said the wrong pick out of order, right? Yes. They asked him for Detroit, who they're taking from Detroit, and he gave Dallas.
Right.
So that was the highlight of the show.
He's an old billionaire.
Yeah.
Or I don't know how much money he has, but he's an old guy who's got a lot of money.
That's for sure. Right?
He doesn't know anything about who do we pick. He probably couldn't pick out any of those players from a lineup if you asked him to.
But I know I don't usually watch the NHL awards. I wouldn't. It's not something that I would ever sit down and watch.
Mm-hmm.
But because it was combined with the expansion draft, I was curious about it. So I was like, okay, I'll check it out, see what's up.
Right.
So I didn't like the awards. I didn't agree with the awards. Some of them.
Okay, well let's go over some of them now. So MVP went to Connor McDavid, and he actually won the MVP voted by the hockey writers.
Yeah.
And the MVP voted on by the players.
I know. So. I mean, I guess everyone thinks he's really the MVP.
Right.
When he got the one voted on by the players, the Ted Lindsay Award,
right.
You were like, "Oh, he doesn't deserve it." You said to me, he has to pay his dues.
He's played a season and a half in the league, and you got a guy like Sidney Crosby.
And I agree with you. And I was like, okay, but you know what? This is voted on by the players, so we'll see what the Hart Trophy is. And then he still won the Hart Trophy.
Right.
I didn't think he deserved it.
Okay. You know what? I didn't think he deserved it either.
But look, I don't really put much stock into the awards.
I mean, he
did get them into the playoffs for the first time in 11 years. Right, and he led the league in scoring. So
you can't really argue.
There's a case there, right?
Yeah.
I still think Crosby's the best player in the league, and he proved it in the playoffs. But they vote on this before the playoffs.
I mean, if you could point to something negative about Connor McDavid and say, well, he doesn't do this well or he didn't do that well, then you might be able to say he didn't deserve to win the MVP. I mean, you could say it anyway.
Right.
But I can't really point to anything that he did poorly.
Right.
So, maybe he does deserve it. Whatever. This is not a situation, I don't think. Well, maybe it is. Time will tell. Where, Gretzky won the MVP, was it 5 years in a row or something?
Gretzky's in his own league.
Right. I don't know that McDavid's going to do that, but I guess time will tell.
Right. And I mean, there was the Norris Trophy for the best defenseman.
It was between Brent Burns, Victor Hedman, and Erik Karlsson. Yes.
Yeah. And again, everyone voted, and Brett Burns won. He had a fantastic season, with his ridiculous beard and his ridiculous teeth missing. He looks ridiculous up there.
I don't like his hair. I don't like the man bun.
And, he had a great year, but, does anybody really think he's a better defenseman than Erik Karlsson? I could never tell you that in a million years.
Yeah, I mean, he may have had more points than Karlsson.
Yeah,
this year.
Don't think he's a better player, though. If I had to take one of them on my team, I would take Erik Karlsson.
Right, I would too, and certainly Burns had a much better supporting cast in San Jose.
Exactly.
So Karlsson carried Ottawa.
Yeah.
Very similar to how McDavid carried.
They had
the
stat.
Edmonton.
He's led their team in scoring 4 years in a row, or 5 years in a row, whatever it is. He's the first defenseman ever to do that.
Well, this is the thing about awards. Fans love to debate this stuff, so we can debate this till the cows come home.
I don't really care. And then, Bobrovsky won the Vezina.
Well, look, Columbus had a great year, and no one saw that. I mean, I didn't see that coming.
No.
So you got to give credit to Bobrovsky and I guess Tortorella, who won Coach of the Year.
I don't like to give Tortorella a lot of credit ever.
Nor do I, but I mean,
it is what it is.
But you know the story with Tortorella. The first year that he coaches a team, they do great, and then after that, it's downhill.
They might do good next year, but then eventually his act starts to wear thin, and the players get sick of him, and then the press.
I mean, look, they got eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, so maybe his act's already worn thin.
Right. And then, I mean, the rest of the awards I don't really care about. The Lady Bing and the...
Well, let's just congratulate Johnny Gaudreau for winning the Lady Bing.
Yeah.
And Craig Anderson for winning the Masterton. And
the other one that was interesting is the Selke Trophy, the best defensive forward.
Which doesn't even go to the best defensive forward anymore.
Yeah.
When it was, Bob Gainey winning it and Guy Carbonneau winning it, that made sense.
When you look at the history of that award was actually created for Bob Gainey.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And the spirit, and over the course of time, it's become, like I told you yesterday, it's become an award for the best two-way player. So they look at like how many goals and assists you get, which is not what they're supposed to do.
No, then isn't that the Art Ross Trophy, most points?
I guess. Well, it is the Art Ross Trophy is most points. But
so the Selke Trophy shouldn't be a guy on your team.
Yeah, Patrice Bergeron is a great defensive forward.
Sure.
He's a two-way player. But, like, that award should go to more of a specialist.
Yes.
A shutdown.
Exactly.
A guy who wins a bazillion face-offs. A guy, like, you can definitely make a case. So I find that the Selke Award is off the rails right now.
I agree, 100%.
It has been forever.
For at least a decade.
More.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So David Poile won GM of the Year, and I can't really argue with that. I mean, he made a blockbuster trade acquiring Shea Weber, and Nashville went all the way to the finals. They've never gone.
When did they vote on the GM award? Before that, or like? I mean, they only finished 8th in their conference. Like,
but still, I mean, they have a great team. They have a team, like, they should be great for years to come.
I feel that giving that award to Poile was almost like a lifetime achievement award.
Well, he has been the GM of Nashville since their inception, I think.
Yeah, he has.
So, he built the team from nothing. So, one other, I do want to talk about Rookie of the Year.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was between Austin Matthews and Patrick Laine and Zach Werenski on Columbus.
Well, this is what I said. What I just told you about John Tavares.
And by the way, Matt Murray is technically still a rookie. Like, he was eligible to win Rookie of the Year, even though he won the Stanley Cup last year.
He's won the Stanley Cup twice. And
as a rookie. No one's ever done that.
Well, Ken Dryden won the Conn Smythe, and then he won the Rookie of the Year, I think, the next year.
Right.
Right?
I think that, yes, I think you're right.
Yeah. Or he won the Conn Smythe before his rookie season, like the same thing.
Yes.
But the same thing what I told you about John Tavares, about how he has such a low profile because of the market that he plays in. Mm-hmm. This is what happened with Austin Matthews, Patrick Laine.
Yeah.
Because if Laine's on another team,
well, Winnipeg isn't exactly
but like a more high profile team, he might win. But there was no way Austin Matthews was not going to win.
Right.
That's the way I looked at it. Look, he had the more points and everything.
And Laine was injured for a bit, and Matthews wasn't.
You're really splitting hairs between the two seasons. Like, both could have won it. Both would have deserved it. You could make an argument for both. Yeah. But I'm sure everybody in Toronto's thrilled, right, with him winning.
Well, are they now? They're going to have to pay through the nose to keep it.
Yeah, they're going to have to pay anyways, whether he won the award or not, right?
That's true.
He's going to make plenty of money, this guy.
So, anyway, congrats to all the award winners.
Mm-hmm.
Also, today, the NHL released their schedule for the entire season.
And when you got to my house, I said, hey, did you hear the schedule came out? You're like, oh, go to February.
Right. Well, I wanted to just see because it's still not official that the NHL players are not going to the Olympics.
Well, I think it is today.
I mean, it is now because if you look at the schedule, there's no break in the schedule between like February 8th and February 25th when the Olympics are happening.
Right.
So now it's official unless there's, a second schedule that's been made that no one knows about.
The secret schedule.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Like a secret menu at a restaurant. But anyway, I mean, listen, this is not a surprise, right? Because Bettman came out a month or two ago and said the NHL players are not going to the Olympics, and then everyone's been working on the premise that the NHL players are not going to the Olympics.
Then they announced the All-Star Games in Tampa.
Right, exactly.
So they're moving forward. So it's going to be weird for us to watch the Olympics. My son, who his whole life, like, we grew up with no NHL players at the Olympics.
Right.
Like, most of our life, there was no NHL players at the Olympics.
Yeah.
So we remember when they had, the collegiate players and basically the...
Corey Hirsch.
Yeah, they had the Spengler Cup guys. The players who were kind of like, they can't even send the best guys from the AHL and the junior because those guys are like under contract or, like, they have to take guys that are like in like random leagues, right?
Playing outside of Canada, outside the United States.
So, I mean, we grew up with that, but like there's a generation now of fans that only knows NHL players at the Olympics. So it's gonna be kind of weird when they have these teams and what's Russia like? The big showdown is gonna be with Ovechkin now. What's gonna happen? He says he's going.
Right, and you know what? even if he doesn't go,
it's quiet now. They haven't talked about it.
I have to tell you that if none of the NHLers go to the Olympics, the team that probably has the best chance to win is a team like Russia, because they have a lot of good Russians that aren't playing in the NHL.
Well, are the KHL going to let their guys go to the Olympics?
I don't know.
I think they might, right?
I don't see why they wouldn't.
They're closer to the time zone. It's much easier,
absolutely.
Right?
So all those European teams that have their own leagues, those countries will have a better shot at winning gold, silver, bronze.
This could be a big year, a big breakthrough for like a team like Germany or Switzerland
or Denmark,
right? Or Denmark, right? Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. I guess it's gonna kind of suck, right? I like watching. Look, I know you're not like a big fan of the Olympics in general, right? You know, I know you don't always watch and stuff, but like in our house, the Olympics is huge. When the Olympics is on, winter or summer, we have it on all the time.
Yeah.
And hockey is the crown jewel of it. Right?
It still will be. Like hockey's still going to be the most watched event at the Olympics. Well, I think even without.
I bet you the women's hockey surpasses the men's.
It might. Yeah.
In Canada, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of, we were talking about the Rookie of the Year award, Calder Award, I should say, between Austin Matthews and Patrick Laine.
Yeah.
The first game of next season is Winnipeg versus Toronto.
The big showdown, made for TV event.
Yeah, there you go. So
cool. All right, so that's the goings on in the NHL.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, like, do you have anything else to add about the week? I mean, I guess the next thing is the draft, the actual draft.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know anything about the draft.
Yeah,
I don't know any of the players that are coming in.
I have to tell you, the draft, whether it's hockey, baseball, football, basketball, I honestly think it's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
Sure, they're you can tell if a player is a first rounder or a 10th rounder.
Yeah.
But the difference between the first pick and the second pick and the 5th pick and the 10th pick, I mean, how many times have you heard of guys that were picked in the 7th round who end up being superstars?
Right.
And guys who were picked first, second, or third who end up being busts. Happens all the time.
It happens all the time. And this year, all the consensus is in the NHL draft anyways, it's not a strong draft. So
there's definitely no Connor McDavid or Austin Matthews or Patrick Laine.
So we'll probably go away from hockey in the coming episodes. I know we have a special episode planned that's going to come out in the next week, non-sports related. I'll just tease it a little bit.
We don't know when we're going to release it though.
So look for that. It's going to be music related, and after that, we're probably the next thing we're going to do about hockey is probably going to be the big free agent July 1st day.
Free agent frenzy. That's coming up sooner than you think.
Yeah, it's like in a week. So we'll probably do some hockey there, and then maybe one of the next episodes we'll have to do some stuff about the NBA draft, which is taking place tonight, and we'll get some reaction about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then, like we said, in the summer we're probably going to go away from sports because the only thing going on is going to be baseball. So we're going to talk about baseball. Like, as if you've listened since episode 1, which some people have, you know that baseball is both our first love, right?
Yeah.
But there's only so much you can talk about in the dog days, as so to speak.
Well, we're going to during the All-Star break, we can do our mid-season awards. Who we think should win all the awards
in baseball? You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a great idea.
And then we're also going to Cooperstown for the Hall of Fame induction.
I'm going to live tweet. We're going to live tweet the event.
Okay.
Pictures, video.
You and 7,000 other people.
Yeah, we're going to live tweet the Cooperstown festivities.
Very nice.
All right. So reminding all the listeners, check out our website, skipandjosh.com. You have all the links for subscribing. And if you go on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, it's very ambiguous. Like, they didn't really do a good job of rebranding. We're going to do a better job of that. Make sure you give us a positive review and a rating and a positive review on iTunes because it helps us out. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Yeah, I just want to thank all our guests for calling in the show and all our sponsors for being great supporters of the show. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
The Skip and Josh Sports Show is over now. Don't worry, there'll be another episode soon.